Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my co-host, Michael Hall. Reed will be here very, very soon. Thank you for tuning into this episode of The Pulse for the Washington Commanders and everything that has transpired up to this part. The Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com, and we are rejoined by brother, family member of this podcast, Mr. Logan Paulsen. Thank you for joining us on Super Bowl Sunday, sir. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on. Sorry it took so long to get back out here, but been busy past couple weeks, so appreciate you having me back.
I think it's all well and fair there, Logan. I know that you have more job hats than anybody really these days, but that being said, it being the Super Bowl, because you played for Kyle Shanahan, is a little bit different for you in being able to say who's going to win in this game, or are you kind of pulling for San Francisco?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm pulling for San Francisco because, Kyle and Trent and those guys, played with George, played with a lot of people on that team there. So I hope they get the W. They've been there. They've been close a lot of times. And so it's always nice to see guys you played with because you know how hard it is to get there. But again, it's, I'm just looking for a good game, really. Like I want them to win, but I understand the NFL's tough and Patrick Mahomes is pretty good at football. So
yeah, you're absolutely right. That being said, obviously at this point, it's well known your kind of connection with Dan Quinn personally, and I'm happy for everybody involved that's going on here. But that being said, he's put together quite a staff already, putting in Witt as the defensive coordinator, being able to get Simmons from the Raiders as DB's coach. Looking at the offensive staff, like offensive line, are there some names that you've circled or have in mind to say these are some guys you could bring in that would be really good offensively for the offensive line?
yeah, I mean, that's a great question. It's something that I'm definitely keeping an eye on because I think that's going to be a huge hire. Kliff is a guy that does such a great job with the passing game. I think he just needs a similar, personality in terms of kind of how to cultivate the running game, the protections, all that kind of stuff. But, I think the thing about coaches that I find very, very challenging is, the big names like
Right.
the Callahans, the coach in Philly, like those guys are the best, but they're not getting out of there, right? So who's the next guy? And I'm not in it the same way. And plus, I'm doing all this draft prep right now, so
Right.
it's tough. But I definitely think I agree. I think that's a hire that you should definitely, if you're a fan of the team, kind of have circled with a red pen and say, man, what does this look like for us? Because that's going to be a huge deal for the Commanders moving forward.
Yeah, and you mentioned your draft prep, and it's still early in the process. We're done with all the All-Star games. We got the combine coming up and all that, and guys' pro days and later on down the road. But who are some guys now that the coaching staff is kind of starting to fill out? Who are some guys you kind of have your eye on early in the process that you could say, okay, I can see this guy kind of fitting what they might be trying to do with this coaching
Yeah,
staff?
yeah, and I think one of the things they said in the press conference was like, "Hey, we want tough physical football players." So obviously, I think as we get closer to the actual day, we'll have a better indication what they're going to do it too. But right now, it feels like they're going to go quarterback, and a guy that I'm really high on right now is Jaden Daniels, and that's not a knock on Drake May necessarily. I just think Jaden Daniels is better at the moment. And then I think the exciting part is you get two opportunities there in the second round to draft really good football players, at 35 and I think 38, if I remember correctly. But yeah, so I think guys, I'm looking at edge rusher. I mean, I'm doing a lot of edge rusher work the past couple of days. So, there's like the top three guys. You got your Latus, you got your Jared Verse, you got your what's his name, Turner from Alabama. So those guys are kind of the top three that are definitively going to go probably 17 and up, maybe 20 and up. But then the next kind of wave there, your Chop Robinsons, your Braylon Trice, your Darius Robinson, from Missouri is a guy that really sticks out to me. He had a wonderful Senior Bowl, super physical guy. If one of those guys were by some miracle to slip to you at 35, I think you'd be doing backflips because I think two of those guys are going to be excellent starters in the NFL. Obviously, Chop is a little bit more of a projection because he's such a speed rusher. He doesn't really have a lot of diversity in terms of movement. But man, those other two guys I think are kind of plug and play starters from day one. And if for whatever reason they're there at 35, I think you're ecstatic because they fit the mold that they were talking about. Tough, physical. So yeah, I think that those are some names that would stick out to me. Again, they might not make it that far, and if they don't, you kind of got the next wave of guys you're looking at, but which would be Braswell from Alabama and Isaac from Penn State, but I think that might be a little bit too high for those two guys. But again, if one of those three that I just mentioned falls in there, woo, that's exciting times for Washington Commanders fans.
That being said, I have two questions for you, but just based off what you talked about, because like Dan Quinn said, quote unquote, that his vision for the players, right? You kind of briefly talked about it a little bit, saying like being physical, being able to tackle well, and all that jazz. With that being said, do you think somebody like Kam Curl would fit under Dan Quinn's defense? Like that would be somebody he would be not eager, but would be very interested in retaining because of what he's shown?
Yeah, I mean, I think he wants a very specific type of player, and I think Cam fits that mold. I think he's a guy that's like a football player's football player. He's tough, he's physical, and I think he's got a skill set that we've all been very privileged to watch the last couple of years. So obviously he's got to make that decision. The staff's got to make that decision. But I think we all can agree Cam's a good football player, and I do think that Cam has some traits that align with that. It's just about finding that role, and what Cam would be willing to do. I think when you look at Dallas's defense, you don't want to go kind of one for one there, in terms of like, this is Dallas's defense. It's going to be exactly the same here. Because I do think that Dan has a pretty good feel and understanding for kind of evolving the defense, and I think Witt also does, like having spent time with Dan, I think that defense is going to evolve to fit the personnel here, but they do like having a lot of kind of those tweener body types, those kind of safeties that could be linebackers. And I think Cam definitely fits in that kind of realm. And so the more body types you can get like that, based on what they did in Dallas, I think would be awesome. I think Cam definitely fits that.
Good, thank you. I appreciate it. Now, with Kliff Kingsbury, you being, I know a football mind altogether, you are very, very smart. But offensively, obviously, is your kind of niche, right? And so, with the air raid offense, with Kliff Kingsbury's offense, who does it really benefit? Like with the offense, does a certain player really benefit from it? And like, what does it do to a defense? Kind of explain it to us simpletons out here. What to expect with the air raid offense from Kliff Kingsbury?
Well, the air raid, is kind of developed by like Mike Leach, for example, is a little bit more is more simplistic than what Kliff Kingsbury is going to be running. But basically, what you're doing is you're trying to get matchups. That's all you're trying to find, and you do that based on formation and alignment. So you kind of create all this space, and if the defense aligns in a certain way, basically you have favorable numbers to run the football. And if they align in another way, you have favorable numbers to pass the ball. If they kind of rock rotation to a certain player, you have your matchup over there. So it really, by spreading it out, it helps you kind of identify coverage structures really well. Also, it gives you light boxes to run into. I think when you look at Marshawn Lloyd from USC, the running back, as an example, they're running a version of the air raid there. He runs into 5-man boxes more than any other player in this draft, right? So he's got all these really favorable looks. Same thing with the running back from Tennessee this last year. I don't remember his name at the moment, but very fast guy. But again, like that's the advantage. You say, oh, how many guys we got in the box? We can run the football well here. Let's take advantage of that. So,
Cool. Am I frozen? Am I going?
No, you're going.
All right, cool. I thought I froze for a second. Yeah, you mentioned that you had Jaden Daniels right now over Drake May. What is the reason that you have Jaden Daniels over Drake May right now? And you kind of mentioned like the air raid offense. How would he kind of fit into the air raid offense if they were to draft him at number 2?
Yeah, so I think the thing about Jaden that really sticks out to me anyway is that he was just a better player this year. In 2023, he was a better football player, obviously won the Heisman. And I think when you watch him, just his ability to push the football down the field, I thought he was very accurate in certain situations. I think he has a good feel for protecting the football. Is he a complete prospect? No. Is he very raw? Yes. But I think he's played a lot of football. He's learned a lot of offenses. And he has a very special skill set, and I think like that's a home run, grand slam out of the park type of pick. It could be, that's his ceiling. And I think, with Drake May, there were just a lot of things this year in 2023. Now, if you look at 2022, you feel differently about the prospects, right? It kind of raises everybody's ceiling. But I think there's probably a little bit of a bias there to kind of say, hey, man, like what I saw most recently from Drake May wasn't as good as I was hoping for. And I think Jaden Daniels was better this last year. And I think you'll find a lot of people that would agree with that. But it's just about how you weigh that body of work, how you weigh the 2 years versus the 1 year. And I think it's really hard to say. And I think people are going to have it weighed differently. And some people have Drake May still as the definitively number 2 guy. He's much closer to Caleb Williams than Jaden Daniels, for example, in some people's eyes. I don't necessarily abide by that, but we'll see. And, with regards to how he fits, I think you don't have to look any farther than 2021 when Kliff Kingsbury was in Arizona. Like having that running quarterback allows you to bring so much diversity to an air raid offense. And one of the limitations of an air raid, because you're in the gun so much, is you have to do a lot of kind of tight zone, very kind of vanilla runs. And in the NFL, that doesn't always work. So having a quarterback that can run the football from back there and kind of place the defense in conflict in a very unique way, obviously, allows you to kind of again, add another layer of conflict to the defense from a run game standpoint. But B, it allows you to be more creative. It allows you to run some of these quarterback GTs, these jet sweep reads, like quarterback powers, all these different things. And again, I don't know how much you want to be living in that, but they did run it enough in Arizona with Kyler Murray to keep defenses honest and keep guys on their toes and find explosive plays that way. So I think that ad would be great. And I think, he basically ran a version of the kind of air raid system when he was at LSU, right? It's not exactly 1-to-1. There's some differences, some different points of emphasis, all that kind of stuff, but it's similar. Like he's in the gun a lot. The guys are spread out. It feels very, very similar. So I do think it's a natural transition, not only for him, but if Drake May wanted to come here, his offense is very similar, not again identical. And obviously Caleb Williams comes from a very close, kind of offshoot in terms of tree. So I think all three of those guys would be great. Even Bo Nix, right? A lot of guys in college run a version of this offense. And I think so kind of fit with regards to quarterback isn't going to be that big of a deal. Because I think, and the other thing about Kliff, which I think he deserves a lot of credit for this, he seems to have a really good feel for how best to maximize the quarterback spot, kind of build his offense to maximize that. And there are some just general offensive limitations from this kind of structure, but I do think you have a guy back there at the helm who understands kind of which levers to pull and how to maximize guys. So I think you should, the fans, regardless of what they do it to, even if Sam Howell's the guy, I think has has a pretty good feel for what's going on there.
Yeah, we can remember back to that Arizona game with Kyler Murray had like a 30, 40-yard rushing touchdown on us. So we could definitely remember that kind of RPO that Kliff Kingsbury and others that they were running in Arizona. Sorry, Hall.
Yeah. No, something just popped in my head as we were talking about quarterbacks. It was just announced that they're retaining the quarterbacks coach, Tavita Pritchard. And I know a lot of people, you're not on Twitter, so you don't have to deal with the nonsense. But a lot of people are like, oh, he was with the last staff and they were losers, so why is he getting carried over, blah, blah, blah. But what does a guy like Tavita Pritchard bring to this coaching staff as a coach? And, is he like one of those guys that's like a rising star? Is he just like a quarterback guru? Like, who is Tavita Pritchard?
Yeah, I've had a couple conversations with him, and I think the thing about Tavita that immediately jumps out at you is just his ability to kind of connect with you as a person and connect with players. And I think players think very highly of him. And from an X's and O's standpoint, I can't speak necessarily that, but I do think that his personality, his energy, the vibe that he puts out, the way he communicates, definitely coincides with Dan Quinn's vision and how Dan Quinn operates. Like he's a guy that's going to bring great energy, going to bring great culture, going to be very supportive of the players. So to me, that seems very natural. Like the personalities seem to go together very, very well. And then kind of work that with his pre-existing relationships within the quarterback room. I think that just is a natural fit, right? Personality, his existing relationships. And again, like I haven't had a ton of X's and O's football conversations with him, but he has played and coached a ton of football, and his background is very comprehensive. So I think you just want smart people in the building, and I think Tavita Pritchard, kind of like you were talking about, Hall, like he does have a kind of a rising star feel about him. And again, he's been coaching for a long time, so I don't want to say like overnight, but he does have a rising star kind of feel about him, and I think it's smart that they keep him around.
Absolutely. Now, to wrap this up, Logan, I only have a couple more questions for you, but hypothetically speaking, let's just say we don't know, obviously we don't know what the future holds, but let's just say you were the tight ends coach for the Commanders. Would it be difficult for you to be able to coach these guys up, in meaning that John Bates, what he offers is very different than what Cole Turner does?
No, I don't think so. I think if that was a role that you were in, it's about speaking to guys' skill sets. And I think when you watch that 2021 film of the Arizona Cardinals, like they had a role for a blocking tight end. They had a role for a receiving tight end. They had a role for, Logan Thomas if he does stick around here, right? Like there is a diversity of skill sets. And I think that's the brilliance and the importance of finding good coaches is speaking to guys' abilities and skill sets. So I want to put Cole Turner, hypothetically, in the best position to be successful. And I understand we got to run the football, and I want to find ways to get John Bates involved in that aspect of the game because I personally believe, just watching his film, that he's one of the best, if not the best, inline blocking tight end in the NFL.
Yeah.
So I don't want that. I don't want to diminish that skill set because running the football is important. As we've seen, throughout the playoffs, the teams that are having a lot of success run the football well. And so I want guys who understand the run game at a high level, are committed to the run game, and kind of adopt that physical mindset. And I think, going back to what Dan said about types of players you're looking for, like John Bates is a tough son of a gun, man. And like you want tough guys, physical guys around. So I think as it would be my job as a tight end coach to communicate to the OC and basically be like, hey, like these are the guys' skill sets, these are roles, these are usage patterns, these are substitution patterns, these are packages within the tight end room that I think we can utilize to maximize this group and help the offense succeed. So that would be kind of my starting point with that group. So I don't think it's hard. I think that's your job as the coach to kind of put those guys in good positions to be successful.
My man, that's why we come to you with these kind of questions, Logan, because you're the guy with the answers. Just to branch off of that, last season you had kind of helped with Greg Dulcich in his rookie.
Yeah.
I think not his pro day, but his individual one. You helped kind of map that out. Do you have any guys this year you're working with?
Yeah, Jared Wiley from TCU. Obviously, we have the same agent, so I go out there, in the summer and like when was that? 2 weeks ago, went out there and got to meet him and did some film stuff. And my agent had some other guys, some receivers and some offensive linemen that were out there. Got to work with those guys as well. But I'm extremely high on Jared Wiley. As a guy that I think can be something special from a blocking Y standpoint that can have some pass game upside. And so when there's guys like that, and he'll probably, I don't think he's getting the buzz nationally that he deserves. But I think like as this process goes along, and if he's available there in the third or fourth round, that's a really good football player that would definitely elevate this roster. So I think it's great that there are pieces like that out there. I know a lot of people get on the what's the guy's name from Texas? His name escapes me at the moment.
Jatavion Sanders.
Yeah, Jatavion Sanders. Like I know people are really high on him, but I think it's important to remember that just because someone's name, and Jatavion is an excellent football player, so is Brock Bowers, doesn't mean that there aren't other good football players that can elevate and have a role within this offense. So again, Jared Wiley's a guy that I know, that I'm familiar with, that I'm excited about, and I want to see, he's going to be a great pro. But yeah, I think a guy that, kind of shows some depth to the tight end class that maybe people didn't think. Theo Johnson from Penn State, another guy people aren't talking about him, but very good football player and a guy that would fill a role within this offense.
My man. Second to last question. What went wrong with Coach Eric Bieniemy?
That's something you have to talk to Coach Eric Bieniemy about. And
Okay.
he's a guy that's pretty, from what I understand, I know him relatively well. He coached me in college and was seeing him around the building. And I think he'd have a very different answer than the one I would give you, and I think that's the only answer that matters really is his perspective on it. And again, I wish him all the best in his next opportunity, but that's something you'd have to talk to him about.
My man, way to do that one because it's a really bad question. But Logan, last question I have for you: your Super Bowl prediction. I'm not sure if you gave it before. Are you predicting one today?
I really want San Francisco to win.
Okay.
I want them to win. But it's just hard to kind of look that guy Patrick Mahomes in the face and make that prediction, I think. So I'm going to go Kansas City. I think it's a close game. So
can they slay the dragon? Can they do it,
Yeah.
Logan?
I hope so.
Last question. On a scale from 0 to 10, in genuine, like not TV, not personality, like your honest personal opinion, how do you feel about the hire of Dan Quinn and where the team is headed at the moment?
I mean, shoot, could I be an 11? I mean, Dan's my guy, man.
Okay.
Dan, I say this, and Dan, he's coached a lot of people. He's had, a multitude of experiences. But the thing in his press conference that really stuck out to me is, he got into coaching to impact young men and athletes. And I was not a young man necessarily by NFL standards when I got there. And but his impact on me was tremendous. Just showing you how you could treat people with respect and energy and kind of maximize people. And again, he might feel, he might not even remember my name, but he was a dramatic impact on my NFL career. And I think he's a guy that's totally deserving of this opportunity. And a guy, honestly, that the thing that I respect probably most about him, in addition to how good of a person he is, that's probably the main thing, is just his constant desire to be better and his constant desire to learn. And I just draw a lot of inspiration from that. So for me, shoot, man, doesn't get much better than him. And then pair that with Adam Peters, a guy again that I had a brief interactions with over the course of my career in San Francisco, doing some media stuff here with the team. And gosh, you couldn't have two better guys, in my opinion, running this thing. Now, the next couple of weeks are going to be extremely important because you got to flush out these staffs, and those are the people that are going to really be the lifeblood of getting the stuff communicated into the players, right? But I think, but in terms of Dan and Adam, man, I can't say enough good things about those guys.
And I forgot to ask you because I saw your videos from the Senior Bowl. Last one, I promise. Anybody in particular that really caught your eye at the Senior Bowl?
Well, I mean, the guy that I mentioned already was Darius Robinson. Like
Okay.
a lot, like I liked his film coming into the process, but holy cow, man! Like
Mm.
I saw him as like a second round player, which I was way higher on him than a lot of people. And people thought I was dumb. But then he goes to the Senior Bowl and looks like an absolute maniac.
Mm.
And again, like he was just that good physically, the physicality, the strong hands, the energy that he brought, the techniques that he played with, and if for some reason he doesn't bump his way into the first round and he's sitting there at 35, 38, wherever you're picking, I think that's a guy that can be a very, very impactful piece to this defense, a guy that can move around the front, do a lot of different things, rush inside, rush outside. And again, the toughness, the mindset is something that I think that Dan Quinn will get really excited about potentially. So that's a guy that he made himself a ton of money at the Senior Bowl, and really happy when you get to go down there and see guys do that. So,
Man, I have one more for you. Can I have one more?
dude, you got as many as you want.
Um,
Said,
because you know Dan Quinn very well, I'm not sure about Witt, but Emmanuel Forbes and Quan Martin, do you think that how much do you think that they'll benefit because of what Emmanuel Forbes brings from what college, being the kind of turnover based?
so what I would say to that, guys, is that I think when you look at, obviously Dan has a proclivity for every defense he's coached, does a good job turning the football over, but I think people sleep on Witt, and like
Yeah.
what he's done in his resume. When you look at his resume, I mean, it's ridiculous in terms of turning the football over.
Right.
It's, like everywhere he's been, they've been like one or two in terms of turnovers every single year they've been there.
Wow.
You'd have to like fact check me on that, but it's a crazy statistic. And so to me, that's coaching. And so if I'm Forbes, if I'm St. Juste, if I'm Quan, if I'm any of these players, like when you watch Dallas as an example, when you watch old Seattle when Dan was there, when you watch Atlanta, like these guys are coached in such a way that allow them to make plays, right? They're coached with the right techniques, they're coached about the right positions, they're coached to be aggressive. And I just think like if I'm getting that type of coaching coming in here, I'm ecstatic if I'm those players. I'm ecstatic if I'm a fan. And people talk about like what do we expect from Witt? And my expectation is that this defense, specifically the secondary, looks completely different. Now, like this is a retool, as Dan Quinn would say. It's not a rebuild. It's going to take some time to kind of get to where
Right.
everybody wants to go. But I think like as just a starting point, just getting better coaches in the building. And I'm not being critical of anyone that was here before, but just getting better coaches in the building that can communicate better, I think is going to be awesome for everybody on that side of the football.
Yeah, I think that you're okay. Nobody's gonna be screenshotting you, Logan. I think you're okay in that and safe in that regard. I can't thank you enough, man. It's so hard to be able to get you on here just because you're doing so much as is, and hopefully, I hope they give you another call and give you another opportunity like they did before, Logan. But I can't thank you enough, man. Watching you on the command center, you really have taken a step in the TV personality phase. I know that it's probably not something that came naturally for you, but you've done a great job, man.
Thanks, guys. Well, I wouldn't be here without you guys. This was like one of the first shows I was doing consistently. So thanks for having me on, and appreciate it, guys. Who you guys got in the Super Bowl, by the way? I didn't ask you.
I'm kind of like you. I want San Francisco to win just because I want Trent to get one because he's
Uh,
been in the league forever, and I feel like he's a guy that not like deserves one, but I just feel like I want one. I want Trent to get one, but it's Pat Mahomes on the other side of the field. It's kind of hard to bet against Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid. So,
right,
but
right.
I will say I think San Francisco pulls out a close one, like a last minute field goal type thing.
I hope so, man.
For me, I'm kind of biased, Logan, because like back to 2014, I was like telling people that Kyle Shanahan was an offensive genius. Like wherever he went to, I was like, they're gonna ball out, right? And so I've been wanting Kyle to get one, and in this situation, what they have built there, I mean, they have to, but it would. If they lose this game, it just shows you an indication of where Pat Mahomes is, and he's just on a
Yeah.
different planet, like on Pluto. And it's just that's the way he is, and that's the unfortunate part about the NFL because it takes so much to get here, and you still might not have enough to get it done, which is just craziness about the NFL, right, Logan?
It is unbelievable. Yeah. So I totally feel the same way as both you guys, sounds like. So looking forward to the game tonight, though, I'll tell you.
Enjoy it,
I
brother. I
just want a
can't.
close game. That's all I want. I just
Yeah,
want a close
Yeah.
game,
I can't thank you enough, Logan. For real, man.
preferably high scoring.
Have a good
All
Sunday.
right.
Enjoy it, brother.
All right, guys. Yeah, you too. Take it easy, guys.
Appreciate it, Logan.
All right, everybody. We just spoke with the man, Mr. Logan Paulsen. Always appreciate talking to Logan, man. I know
Yeah,
it's
man.
really hard to talk to him nowadays, and it's good. He deserves it, man.
I think last time y'all had him on, I like had something else to do, so it's been like a long. Honestly, I think it's probably been since like. Did we have him on during the season? I can't even remember. If it was during
Yeah.
the season, so yeah, it's probably been since during the season at some point. Since the last time I've even like seen her and talked to him, so always good to get the big guy on.
Yes, it is, and he is doing incredible. And it's funny because he tried playing, being coy about it, saying, "I don't know if Dan couldn't remember my name." Come on, son. Now let's go to our fan questions and wrap up this episode, boys. It's Super Bowl Sunday. Obviously, we'll preview the game at the end, but this first question is from the Colonel Hall. The hiring of Kliff Kingsbury seems to indicate we'll be moving towards an air raid offense. Will that see us acquiring much bigger targets at tight end and wide receiver than the 6-footers we have now?
You would think that, but if you look at the track record of the Arizona receivers, whenever Kliff Kingsbury was there, it was always the smaller, kind of shorter, speedy, kind of shifty type of guys.
But you were
And
right sorry to cut you off. OG corrected me in the comments. DeAndre Hopkins was brought by Kingsbury in year 2.
that's what I thought,
Yeah.
and it was like the year that he got fired or something like
Yeah.
that. Because yeah, that was the first year. What's his name got hurt, Kyler Murray. But yeah. So I mean, obviously DeAndre Hopkins is like one of those like elite. Well, still is kind of sort of, but he was one of those elite talent type of wide receivers. But the rest of the guys around him were kind of like little Kyler Murrays out there, a little short, kind of shorters, kind of speedy, like shifty type of guys. So I would say that, I mean, we already kind of have those guys here. Like Jahan Dotson's not like the biggest guy. Terry's like 6 foot, something like that, 6'1", whatever it might be.
Correct.
So I would extend, and then you got to look at also a guy like Hollywood Brown, Marquise Brown, who's like a shorter, kind of speedy, shifty guy that's in free agency. Maybe they take a look at him, but I would expect that maybe they go like maybe one position as far as like a bigger type of like possession type of like a receiver. But if you look at the track record, like I said, it's kind of like always a smaller, shifty stature type of guys.
Yeah, and I love the question, Colonel, because it's a fantastic one. And I think with Arizona, when Kliff first got there, I think that they ran with the kind of smaller wide receivers like we have now. And it did benefit them. But they kind of realized that they were handicapped in the sense that, yeah, you have these short, speedy guys, but you still don't have your number one. You still don't have the constant outlet to go to. And I could see how them going to acquire DeAndre Hopkins is something that Kliff Kingsbury wants to bring here. But for Terry and Jahan, yes, of course they fit. But if we truly want to maximize what we can do with this offense, we certainly need a bigger target. I'm not going to say a number one. All I mean is essentially a possession wide receiver that is very good at being able to do the short yardage routes, being able to sure-handed. And the one thing about DeAndre Hopkins, I'm sure everyone knows this, but his hand size. The guy's got like 11-inch hands or something like that. Absolutely incredible. You just need somebody who's going to catch the football and is dependent in that breath. And obviously, Terry is too, but you need balance. And I think that's what Arizona kind of realized is, yes, we had the short, shifty guys, but life is about balance. And for us to be able to balance our offense out, because we're easy to beat in this regard, we had to get a taller guy in DeAndre Hopkins, which helped them, but then they ended up getting injured. So I do think that it's very good and it works with what we have here. I 100% believe that. It works with what we have. If we really want to meet the next level, I do think that we have to look into acquiring a big target, a young target, possibly via free agency or through the draft.
Yeah, and again, I know everyone wants to be like, again, it's kind of that lasting image, the what did you have? What have you done for me lately type of thing. And everyone looks at a guy like Josh Reynolds like, oh, he was bad in the NFC Championship game. He dropped these passes and blah, blah, blah. But if you really look at the track record of a guy like Josh Reynolds, he's that bigger, taller kind of possession receiver that can run all the routes, intermediate down the field. But he's a hell of a blocker, too, in the run game. And when you have a receiver on the outside that's big like that, you're going to need him to get dirty in the run game. So I would think that maybe a guy like Josh Reynolds as well might be a guy they might take a look at.
Can I tell you a really embarrassing story about me that happened to me yesterday? So I'm about to do a film breakdown on Kieran for the offensive tackle from Yale. And so I was watching the film of him and the team and the offense and everything. And the number one from Yale kept jumping out to me. Like this kid, like Jahan Dotson type stuff. Like I remember when I was watching Pat Fryermuth, Jahan Dotson continued to pop off. And I even made a couple of tweets a year before he was getting drafted, like, who is this kid number one? But I kept saying, who is this kid on number one? So I looked up Yale's roster, and the number one came up, and it was like he was diagnosed with cerebral palsy early on in his life, and he doesn't have full ability to twist his body and all that stuff. And I was like, what the heck is going on? Like, this is incredible, this story. And I realized it was actually like a patient who was adopted by the team. And they gave him the number one. But I was like, for 2 minutes there, I was like, what is happening right now? And I felt like felt like such an idiot. But that seriously though, that number one kid, watch out for him. He's a senior though. I'm not sure if he's going to get drafted, but as an undrafted free agent, I would 100% bring that.
Was
kid
he a
in.
wide receiver or something?
Yes, dude. I'll show you some of the catches he made. It's absolutely incredible. But now the next question from the Colonel Hall. Any chance we will retain Antonio Gibson? His role in a Kliff Kingsbury offense is exciting to contemplate, minus the fumbles, of course.
Yeah, unfortunately, just with the running back situation in the NFL, as far as the contracts and all that stuff goes, it's pretty much you, unless you're an elite guy like a Saquon. Even Saquon's having a hard time getting a contract. But unless you're like an Austin Eckler or a Kamara or a Derrick Henry, a guy that's like a franchise type running back where you're a 3 down guy. You can handle the load of the whole entire offense.
Reed can.
Yeah. Then there was a joke coming in there.
Dude, he can't stop talking about that Drake video.
I know it's actually getting like
It's ridiculous.
almost like stalkerish
I know.
vibes, but yeah. So I think that he's gonna probably move on. Like I know we've like AG's been my guy. This has been my guy since before we drafted him. When we drafted him, that was my guy. But outside of that rookie season, it just kind of seems like he never really got like unlocked per se into the offense and I just think that he'll probably move on to another team, and hopefully he has a good career and a solid career. I think he will, but I think there's guys that like we just talked about when the USC running back
Marshawn Lloyd.
The Commanders met with him at the Senior Bowl. They met with him a couple times, so I think that just like with everything else in NFL, it's all about like the younger, faster new toy, and it just seems like they're gonna have a younger, faster version of Antonio Gibson coming in here soon.
Yeah, but I did a mock draft and somebody had seen that I drafted Marshawn Lloyd, and they'd made a comment that I think it's one of the high schools locally he was at, but he crapped out on them in a playoff game, basically, and they didn't like him. And so just keep that in mind. But it's something I've been bringing up, right? But Colonel, to your question with AG checks the box for everything you'd want in a Kliff Kingsbury offense, right? Being the running back, coming from being a wide receiver in college, being kind of the thicker guy, being able to be on the outside in space. But the one issue for AG in not being able to be a fit here is the non-explosiveness, right? Because that's the one thing with AG is that, yes, when he gets rolling, he's like a train. He gets going, he's got it. But to be able to separate in space, like what is it called? Being in a phone booth? Like if he's in a phone booth, he's not getting out of that. You know what I mean? And I think that is what is holding him back from being able to be brought back here and actually being utilized correctly. Because in that situation, to be a pass catching back in the NFL, you have to be able to maneuver in a phone booth. And it's incredibly difficult. Only the best of the best can do it. It's just, unfortunately, it's just the nature of the beast and the way the situation is now. I just don't see it happening. But I know he's your boy. I love AG. Obviously, with running backs, it'd be cheap. It'd be a lot cheaper than Austin Eckler or obviously Saquon Barkley. But at this point, like I would much rather go to the draft because of Adam Peters and company going back to San Francisco. It wasn't like they went ham in free agency. So I highly doubt that that's going to be the avenue they go down for running back. But I might be wrong. Now, the next question from the Colonel Hall. This one, who are some top-tier linebackers we can expect Dan Quinn to go after, whether free agency or the draft, that would become our Micah Parsons?
Man, I haven't looked at the free agency linebackers yet, or the draft linebackers yet. But
you got
I would assume that
Patrick Quinn is out there. The dude from the
I
Seahawks.
do like the linebacker from NC State.
I think Jordan Brooks is available as well from Seattle. You're talking
the
about
linebacker
Wilson.
from Linebacker, yeah, Pete Wilson.
Peyton.
I like him. Who?
Peyton Wilson.
Peyton Wilson. Yeah, I knew it started with a P. Peyton Wilson from NC State. I think that he's a guy that's going to be hopefully be around whenever we're picking in the middle rounds. But yeah, as far as like free agency goes, I haven't really looked at that yet and the draft yet. But I will definitely get on that probably this upcoming week. Honestly, now that the Super Bowl's over, or
Yeah,
going to be over soon.
there's a lot of guys in the draft. Early on, I thought that this would be a very depleted kind of linebacking class, and it doesn't look to be that way at this moment in time. Obviously, being a wise man, you always have to change with new information, right? And with Edgerrin Cooper in particular, Edgerrin Cooper, what he offers you is almost like a QB spy. If you watch
There's a
him,
dude from Texas A&M.
yeah, absolute just missile. And when you
Yeah,
see
he's a beast.
his closing speed, his approach speed, it blows the doors off. It kind of shows you. But if you're talking about an edge rusher, Darius Robinson obviously has been making waves coming out from the Senior Bowl as an edge rusher. But I think if you're talking about the Micah Parsons mold, Colonel, I think you're looking at Jamin Davis. I mean, if you're looking at somebody who's a linebacker who's going to be moved to an edge, that be fast, that's quick, that's tenacious, and attacks, it's Jamin Davis. And he's already showed you what he does on the edge. He's done a very good job at it. And with the right mindset involved, where Dan Quinn's done this with Micah Parsons, that would be an easy transition for Jamin. And you're talking about he has 1 year left. You might as well kick the tires on that and then replace the linebacker somewhere else. But in free agency, it's all over the place. I think AJ Espinoza, right now he's getting paid $5 million. I don't know what his market value is from Buffalo. That's somebody that could be on the cheaper side, but coming from Buffalo could be very productive for you. And then Patrick Queen, obviously from Baltimore, everyone knows about him coming out right now. There's one, Aziz Al-Azuri, I think his name is, from San Francisco. He's 26 years old. Somebody I had circled, I think last season, last season, before he signed with Tennessee. And obviously Adam Peters there coming from San Francisco might have a good relation with Aziz, but that's somebody who's young, comes from a good structured defense, learning behind Fred Warner, has relations with Peters, and wouldn't be crazy expensive. And I think that'd be a good choice to go down. Anybody else?
Yeah, no, like you said, Josh Allen, but they're more like edge guys. I know like the edge guys so far, and like a couple cornerbacks, but haven't really dove into the linebackers as of yet.
I'm with you. Last week I missed these two questions. This one's from King Commando, Proud Papa on Twitter. Which free agent could benefit us the most in this offense? Gibson or Samuel? Include price tag in your rationale.
Offense. I would probably say, I'd say Curtis Samuel, just because again we're going with the air raid offense. Is going to be a lot of four wide receiver spread out like spread sets, and the track record of a guy like Kliff Kingsbury again is the kind of the shorter, the smaller, kind of shifty, speedy guys that can the versatile guys that can line up in the backfield, kind of the Swiss Army knife type of guys like a Rondell Moore that he had out in Arizona. But as far as price tag, I think that when he just came off a 3-year deal here, I think maybe another like 2-year deal. Let's say 2 years, like 20 million, 18, 20 million, somewhere around there. I could say that, or maybe a 3-year deal with like the third year voided or something like that. You know, them weird contracts get with all them voided years and whatnot. But I would say somewhere between, I'd say he's based off what he's done this year and the value he could bring to an offense if he can stay healthy. I'd say he's probably going to be making somewhere between like 8 to 10, $11 million a year.
This is a great question, Papa, because including the price tag, it's obvious that Samuel would cost more than Gibson, right? We know that the running back market is not heavy in the price, so to speak. That being said, looking at this offense and given what they offer, are there a lot of running backs that offer the pass catching ability that fit Kliff Kingsbury's offense? Is there a plethora of them that would be at the price tag of where Antonio Gibson is? Better yet, of where Curtis Samuel is. And I think that those guys that are available for you in free agency are going to be north of where Curtis Samuel is. So Antonio Gibson is still the plus there. Because he's there, he relative with everything going on here, the guys here, it would more benefit you to have AG here because there's not a lot of people that you can replicate what he does, right? In the sense of pass catching and all that jazz. But with Curtis Samuel, obviously, he's balled out, man. It's just the price tag being more expensive, being older. That being said, if you're not going to get the big wide receiver for Kliff Kingsbury's offense, if you're going to go the shorter, speedy route, you better go all in. And when you had that short, speedy route, it better be firepower, like rocket power type stuff, in order that the defense cannot stop it, kind of like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Like it has to be overwhelming in speed. And so if you are going to go down that route, it would make sense to bring back Curtis Samuel to add that speed. But you have to ask yourself, does he give you that speed truly? And that's what you have to ask yourself. So it's probably not a lot of people are going to agree with me, but because of the price, I would say Antonio Gibson is probably the best bet. But that's a great question, Prop Pop. I'm sorry I missed it the other day. The next one that I missed, sorry, David. This one's from D Morales on Twitter. Thank you, David. If we decide to trade out of the 2 spot to get more draft capital, what is your thoughts on that, and how far down would you be willing to go?
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows my stance as of right now. It's just stay put at 2 and draft the guy, whether it's Jaden Daniels or Drake May, whoever it might be. But if they were to trade down, how far would they go? Yeah, I mean, there's been talks about. I think we talked about this on Thursday. There's been talks about the Raiders trying to come up. There's been talks about Atlanta maybe trying to come up for a quarterback. I know the Vikings. A lot of people are speculating the Vikings might try to make a move just because they have Justin Jefferson and all this offensive talent, and Kirk Cousins coming off the Achilles. He's kind of getting up there in age, and the contract that Kirk's going to probably demand, because we all know Kirk's all about that money. Somehow he
even
cashes
said,
out.
actually, he said this. He's not looking for money in this next.
I know.
Contract.
I mean, you say that publicly.
I know
but he knows what
right?
he's saying behind the scenes. But I'm not. I mean, so and then the report of Daniel Jeremiah, where he thinks there's like 4 to 5 teams that are going to be in the quarterback market trying to come up for a quarterback. So it's looking more and more like. And then I think there was another report that Commanders looking like maybe a potential trade out spot. So a trade out of 2. So I mean, it's looking more and more that like it's either take a quarter. I know it's either take a quarterback or 2, or they're going to trade out. But I could definitely, if they do trade out, I could see them going back to like 5 or 6, getting a pretty nice haul, just go back like 3, 4 spots and going from there. But again, me personally, I'm team take the quarterback at number 2.
Yeah, I don't think 5 or 6 past that is what you really want to do. And honestly, the Bears don't either. That's why I'm calling their bull crap on them trading out. I don't think you want to leave the top 3. I think you're trying to force us to do it.
Right,
and I don't think
exactly.
New England is honestly willing to trade up to move up that far just for Caleb Williams. I think they're sitting in the same position we are, where they're saying, we could go with whatever. So let's just see
Yeah, they're already talking about they could address their quarterback situation in free agency and trade out of that, get a haul, and then kind of rebuild that roster, because we all know obviously that roster is poo-poo.
Poo-poo. Now this next question from Andy Lockhart in the Discord. Why is the NFL allowing this crap to slide? And he's talking about how the Sphere out in Las Vegas, the big concert venue, they showed all the Super Bowl rings for all the teams. For the Redskins one, it only showed Washington. It did not show Redskins. Okay. Andy, Andy, why are they allowing it to slide? Because is it hurting anybody? And like, honestly, and that's all they care about. Like, they just don't want to get yelled at. It's just like us. Like, you go to work. You just don't want anybody yelling at you. So you're going to do whatever you do to just have not somebody yell at you. That's what they're doing. Okay, that's all they're doing, Andy. And I know it's disrespectful to us, but we also have to remember, we are the only ones who are going to care. Raiders don't care about disrespecting us. Chiefs don't care, but they don't care. All right? Now, this next question in Discord. This is from Tony Franchise to you, Hall. What 3 players should the Commanders target during free agency?
Ooh. Again, just going based off of the little free agents that I've seen so far.
I gotta go to the bathroom.
I would say that D-end is the position. What is going on right now? I would say defensive end. Matter of fact, you know what? I'm going to look it up since clearly I have a little bit of time, because Kyle just went commando mode. But I'd say a guy like Josh Allen, who took him a little bit to come on, but obviously he's a star pass rusher now for the Jaguars. He's a defensive end. I would maybe take a look at him. Let's see. Who else? Yeah, I don't know. This list is like taking too long to look at, but I would say that offensive line, bringing some veteran offensive linemen, whoever is on that list, and I would say that Probably a veteran linebacker. We're going to need a veteran kind of presence on that side of the ball, that the quarterback of the defense type thing. I know that I saw an article earlier and I was reading into it during the week at work, and it was the cornerback Xavier Howard for the Miami Dolphins might get cut because just because his contract situation and everything like that. If he hits the market, he's a lockdown corner, number one cornerback. I feel like he would do great in Dan Quinn's defense with a guy like Joe Witt. So maybe those are some of the positions to target in free agency. Don't know where Kyle went, but I don't know. Yeah,
My
we
bad.
talked about Josh Reynolds as well. Maybe they go with the big body quarterback, a guy like Josh Reynolds as well. So we'll see how it shakes out.
Longest one of my life. My bad. That hasn't happened in a while. Whew. 3 players that we should target in free agency. Number one being Kam Curl. I think that's without a doubt, in my personal opinion. Look, a lot of people will say that you can go down the route of, Jaron Curse, or you could get Cameron Kitchens is the new one that everyone's been falling in love with. Cameron Kitchens most likely will be a first-round pick the way that it's rolling out. So you kind of got to imagine there's only a handful of guys that could really replace it, and can you guarantee you're going to get your hands on them? Not 100% sure on that. So I think that Kam Curl would probably be your number one free agent that you'd want to target and bring here. And then off of that, I think edge rusher is obviously very important. And I wonder what their kind of plan is here, because obviously we have guys in place. Do they like them enough to be able to say, we're going to give you a starting job for that? Or are they more so looking of trying to move things around like a Darius Robinson, or trading or picking somebody at free agency? So like an AJ Espinoza is a really good idea there. And then the last one, I'm not going to say tight end. I don't think tight end they should do that. And I think wide receiver they should go down the route. But I think depth is probably a good thing on the offensive line. And so just adding depth I think is good. I'm not sure about free agents on offensive line, so I'm sorry, Tony. But now the next question in the Discord, sir. Mr. Hall. And I can't pull it up now because I forgot my passcode. But this is from Tim Towner. Burgundy Zone does math. What are the odds of Washington having a winning record in 2024, playing a rookie quarterback, drafting at 2?
Ooh, the odds. I'd say, I mean, we see teams go from, I'm not going to say like from first or worst to first because that's like super dramatic, but I mean, get what, 9 wins next year? Schedule AFC North. Da, 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 da. I mean, obviously it depends on like the draft and free agency and how that all shakes out, but I'd give it like a 60-40 chance, like 60% like no, 40% yes. And again, that could switch to 50-50, honestly, after free agency and the draft and all that. But I'd give it like a 60-40 chance. Like I could see them getting a minimum 7 wins next year if the quarterback comes in and hits the ground running and plays well. But 9 wins, they're gonna have to do a lot of retooling on the defense if they want to actually get like to like 9 wins or something like that. But we'll see.
I'll say it's 30-70. And the reason why I say 30-70, Tim, is because this is the first time that we actually have ownership that are geared to actually making things better. And I think this offseason is the first time we're truly going to be able to see this football team actually invested in getting better, not just selling tickets, right? And I think that this defense, because the defense being our biggest reason why we took a step back last season, wasn't because of the offense. And the season before that, it was the offense was the reason why we weren't getting further. Then last season, this past one, it was the defense was being last in the league. Well, if you're adding Witt, if you're adding Dan Quinn, you have to imagine there's going to be progress on day one as soon as you hire them defensively. That being said, you're feeling good about the balance of the team in that regard. Now, can you replicate that with a good offensive coordinator? All right, we got Kliff Kingsbury. Good, we have some structure here. Now with a quarterback at number 2, you're cooking with gas, especially with somebody who's relative with what the quarterback you're going to add here. With the assets you provided, it kind of all gels. And so I think the odds are very good. I'll say 30-70 that they're able to do that. I know it's probably kind of crazy, but honestly, we don't have that weight anymore. And I think that they are very much invested in turning this thing around. And you looked at like the team's output in production. I think it was like one on, one off, one on, one off. And I think off obviously being last year. So on this year, and everyone's probably going to pick us to be last in division. It's probably going to be one of those years like the RG3 year where we just come out lightning, but we didn't really come out lightning, but you know what I mean. Now the next question we have, this one is from Deluxe. When do you think renegotiations and or extensions for current roster begin?
I think they're going to start doing all this stuff, assessing every. Well, they've already doing it like behind the scenes, but I think as far as like the coaching staff goes and offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, coach, GM, scouts, all that stuff, I think they're going to start all that starting this upcoming Monday. I think Doug Williams actually said that when everyone said he was telling the Commanders' plan on NFL Network to Andrew Siciliano and all those guys, but. I think that he said starting tomorrow is when Adam Peters, Dan Quinn, all the
Leave Doug
coaches,
alone,
everybody.
man.
Yeah, they're gonna get. I don't know. They're gonna get in there and they're gonna start talking about the roster and making all those type of decisions and whatnot. So I would assume it's gonna be tomorrow, especially because the Super Bowl tonight and Adam Peters probably obviously he's with San Francisco. I'm sure he has like not like a huge investment in it, but I'm sure he wants to see his team that he helped construct finish it out. So I would say that like I said, tomorrow I think they're going to start hitting the ground running with everything going on.
They frickin' better. Call up my boy Bam Bam. Now the next question, this is from Tim Towner. He says, I think Kansas City can win if their offense can keep up with Shanahan, but Kansas City cannot be their own worst enemy. After dropping the ball all season at an alarming rate, they turned the switch on and caught everything in the championship game. So my question is, Kansas City will win the Super Bowl if they have less than blank drops in the game.
Uh, I mean, I guess I'll put it at like less than like 6 or 7 drops, but are we sure that Kansas City is going to have to keep up with 49ers offense, or is the 49ers offense going to have to try to put points up on the board against Kansas City's defense? That's the way I'm looking at it is I think it's going to be the 49ers are going to be kind of not struggle to find their rhythm, but I think it's going to take a little while to kind of figure out that Chiefs defense before they start kind of getting it rolling. But yeah, I think that if they have less than like 6 or 7 drops, I think that the offense should be fine and they should be able to continue drives and convert those third downs and keep the chains moving.
I don't think that it'll come down to drops, Tim. I know a lot of people have been talking about the drops and how important it is. And
They've only dropped one pass the entire playoffs.
Oh, in my opinion, this game today is going to come down to sacks. And that's how many times can the 49ers bring Pat Mahomes down. Obviously, they don't have Thoney. They were able to get away with it last week against the Ravens. But that being said, the Ravens aren't really that kind of a edge rushing team. Well, now you're dealing with Bosa and company. This is a good defense that they're facing against. Can they keep Pat upright? Because with San Francisco, I think Kyle and the experience of those losses, I talked about it last week before the games. I thought that Kyle's game was going to come down to experience, and that being very different for Ben Johnson and Kyle Shanahan. We saw that. What was the difference in last week's game or 2 weeks ago? What was the difference?
With the 49ers?
Were they up 21-0 or something like that?
Yeah, they were up 21. They were up 21-0 quick, and then it was up 24-7 at halftime or something like that.
Right. So it's like eerily similar, right? And that's like the kind of experience as a caller. And that's why I think in this game, it's going to be Kyle running the football because the Kansas City Chiefs did exactly what I thought the Ravens were going to do. And that was run the football in that weather. And they did it well, and they did something better than the Ravens did. And everyone's putting on Lamar. That wasn't on Lamar. That game was purely on
horrible game plan.
Brown. It was so stupid.
Yeah, it was a horrible game plan.
But that being said, I think it's going to come down to sacks. And if they can limit to Pat Mahomes being sacked less than 3 times, I think that Kansas City will win. But I think that the 49ers will have a very good game plan. The big thing is, can they get the ball rolling with Christian McCaffrey and keep the weight off Brock Purdy's shoulders? Because if it is put on Brock Purdy's shoulders, I am concerned with how San Francisco is going to fare. Because can Brock Purdy keep up with Pat Mahomes?
That's going to be the question that we got to see answered.
Yeah, but I really hope 49ers win. I just because for Trent Williams, and sort of for Chase a little bit, just a little bit. But really for Trent Williams and Kyle.
I want to see Trent get one. I want to see Christian McCaffrey get one because he's like the what do you call it? He's like the white. He's like the no pun intended. The white unicorn, the white running back that like no one ever thought would ever be successful.
Yeah, can you imagine being the only white guy in like the Hall of Fame? Like, can you imagine obviously there were like white running backs back in the day, but I'm just saying like living. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm the only one here. The token white guy.
The guy that they weren't getting like watched in black and white like TV days and shit.
Yeah, absolutely. But Brandon Ayuk, watch out for him today. That could be the difference maker. And then obviously George Kittle, man, and Kelsey.
You don't think Kadarius Toney's going to be a difference maker?
He didn't not even playing, right? All right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. I can't thank you guys enough for watching. If you made it this far, you're a frickin' champion. Enjoy your Super Bowl Sunday. We'll see you guys on Thursday. We'll catch you down the line. Enjoy it. My name is Kyle.
My name's Hall. Fast forward through that solo part when I was talking because I was just rambling about nothing.
I was honestly, the whole time I was up there, I was worried. I was like, I don't know what's going on down there. I'm not sure if he's going to leave. I didn't know
I
how
was
that
just
gonna go.
honestly, I was like, did he like stop recording again? Like, what is going on?
No, I said I got to go to the bathroom. I thought you heard me. All right, everybody. We'll see you guys on Thursday. Enjoy this Super Bowl. I think the 49ers will win 28-24. And we'll see you guys on Thursday.
I think the 49ers pull it off. I'll say 30-28. I think that what'd you say?
And this has nothing to do with, like, a lot of people think that it's because you're doubting Pat Mahomes. No, dude, it's a team game, okay?
Actually, no. I'm not even gonna say 30-28. I'm gonna say 27-25.
All right, dude. All right, everybody. We'll see you on Thursday. Have a great, safe, fantastic Super Bowl Sunday. We'll catch you then. Watching the football. Woo! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.